What's up, rock stars? How are ya? Yeah, welcome to another Tuesday edition of Rocket Live. Really excited to be here today. Really excited to have my guest on today. And thank you all so much for joining us live right now. And a big thank you to everybody that will watch the replay of this later on. And of course, those of you that will listen to the audio version of this much later on, because as everybody knows who watches the show, I'm a little behind on getting the audio versions out, but that's why we do the video version, which is always accessible every single time. And if you want to watch past episodes of the show, all you have to do is head over to my YouTube channel, Rocket Growth Agency, and you can watch all of the episodes there that we have done to date on the video versions, which I believe is like over almost 50. So we're coming on 50th show very soon. I'll have to see who number 50 will be. But I am very excited. And of course, as we always ask you to do, is to please like and share, and also comment on this as you go along. For those watching live, please participate by commenting, asking questions along the way, because it always makes it fun. Afterwards, we definitely ask you to share this with anybody in your network who you may feel like would really want to see this interview, because it not only helps me grow the show, but it also helps my amazing guests that I have on to give them access to your network. And I would also ask too that if you would be so kind as to show your support for the show by heading over to the link on the screen, which is buymeacoffee.com/cavaglio. You can also hit the link in the show notes in the comments of this and get access to it as well. Now, let's get to it. I want to welcome my very special guest today. I'm so excited to have you on. This is wonderful. I have Rena DeLevie on today.
Hello.
How are you? This is so cool.
Great.
I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for coming on.
I am toasty hot in this weather, but otherwise doing great.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's where you and I are both in the New York, New Jersey area here in the Northeast,
Right.
and I know some of our friends on the West Coast, especially in that Portland area, are definitely dealing with some really high temperatures. But for us here, we're also getting feeling a bit of the heat ourselves. And yesterday, today, I think tomorrow, I think Thursday, I'm not sure, but we're definitely under the heat dome.
Yes, that we are.
Yeah. So
I'm excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited for you to be here too, because I love what you do and how you help people, especially creative professionals. And I actually had the great fortune of knowing you for a few years now, because we run in a lot of very similar circles of people, networking groups, businesses. I was able to watch your TEDx on YouTube, which was awesome. I loved everything that you said, and I find what you do really fascinating. So rather than me say it, I'd rather you tell the audience, what is it that you do?
Okay. Hi, my name is Rena DeLevie, and so what I do is I teach compassionate leadership. It's a management methodology that I created based on the fear-based management that I experienced for the entirety of my career before I went out on my own, and even after I've been out on my own. And so fear-based management was sort of the expectation, the foundation, what most of us people over the age of, say, 35 have experienced. Maybe 40, but I'm definitely beyond 40. And so all that I experienced was fear-based management, using fear and threatening and secrecy and lack of transparency to keep people working, very churn and burn experience. And can I curse?
Of course, you can.
I was an asshole manager. I was so successful at getting shit done. I was just on it, right?
Right.
And yet people would see me coming, people on my team, and they'd go, put it away, Rena's coming. And I realized actually right before 9/11 that I wasn't happy and that I was this really empathetic, sensitive soul, and I was tired of hiding. So I started to meditate a little bit, but it had been made clear to me that I would never succeed in my career if I showed up as myself, right? I had to still be this fear-based manager. And then 9/11 happened, and it was like a true epiphany of, I don't care if I don't succeed according to the fear-based management rules. If I had been on a plane or in one of the buildings, I would not have been saying, I'm a VP. I would be saying, I was an asshole. What was the point of that all? And so it was a very clear demarcation from what I had just started to wonder, like, I'm not really happy, treating people this way. And then it was boom. And so I started codifying and creating something that I called compassionate management, thinking I was coming up with something truly unique. And then Jeff Weiner of LinkedIn started talking about compassionate management. And I was like, yes, let's change the whole structure. So that's what I do. Talk about how you can be compassionate and hold your team accountable and yourself to get shit done in the workplace and in life.
Yeah, and I love that because in the course of your TED Talk too, you talked a lot about that, and you shared you shared a really cool story actually, which I really appreciated, because I think it helped put the whole thing in context when you talked about it on your talk, and that was your interaction with the pharmacy employee. With the person that had sort of replaced the other person that you'd seen all the time. And she kind of was, didn't come off very, there was a lot of friction there.
Yes.
And then you were able to talk to the owner. And then it was like the next time she saw you, it was like, oh my gosh, completely different person.
What I want to clarify for the viewers and listeners is that I didn't go to the owner to say, your new pharmacist is a bitch. I went to the owner to say, I think she's feeling fear, and I think you need to help her. Now, I had been going to this business for a long time. So it wasn't like I was a stranger who walked in and just said to the owner, I know better than you. I said, hey, how's it going with your new? And he was like, and I was like, this is what I teach. Do you want me to share? And he said, yes, please. And so I shared, I think she's feeling a lot of fear and not clear in what you actually expect of her. Now, I'm totally guessing because I haven't had a conversation with her, but this is what I see in my clients for years and years and years. And he said, well, what do I say to her? And so I kind of gave him a quick script. And the next time I went in, she was like, Rena, thank you. That was awesome. I was like, great. So she was happier, and therefore the owner was happier. The customers were happier. It's the opposite of shaming. Mm-hmm. It is nurturing connection, collaboration, using compassion and accountability together. I will continue to do this motion over and over and over again because it is equal parts compassion and accountability. It's not compassion as a doormat, and it's not accountability as in you're in trouble if you don't. It is, what do you need to get it done? Can I help you get it done? Because it's got to get done.
Yeah, and I think you made a really key statement there in what you were just explaining too, is the statement that compassion is not a doormat. Mm-mm. And I think that's a really good way to sort of frame that, because I feel like when people hear the word compassion or compassionate management and compassionate leadership, that the tendency, even though it's not true at all, is to sort of go with this whole like doormat pushover, touchy feely, and how you were in it. You were in the business culture of how certain things are, and some businesses are not like that, and they should be. But I think just kind of right off the bat, like how you set that up is like that is the big myth. I mean, it's not. It's a complete misnomer that like to be compassionate is sort of a weakness, so to speak, and it's not. It's not.
It's incredibly powerful, and thank you for bringing that up. I just want everyone to know Chris did not give me warning of what he was going to say, so I am just really responding real time. So
This is
none of
how the
this
show
is
works.
like planned bullshit. So yeah, I think when I first became a manager, which is a very standard, truly difficult turning point in anybody's career journey, when you are part of the group and then suddenly you're managing them, it's terrifying. And so we often, at that point, end up overcompensating and trying to be liked. And we forget, or we don't know, a lot of my clients don't even know, that it's more important to be respected than liked. I would rather work with somebody I don't like, whom I really respect, than somebody I really like and don't respect. I'd rather go out to dinner with the person I like. But if I'm going to have to work for somebody, I need to respect them, or I'm not going to work so hard. I'm going to be like, what are we doing here? And so that's why using compassion and accountability together get you respect. Using compassion alone and then rolling over and being like, whatever, you don't get respect. And in fact, people won't even like you after a while, because in the workplace specifically is what we're talking about. People want to know where they stand. They don't want to be bullied. They don't want to be shamed. And they want to know where they stand. So if you can compassionately and with accountability say, here's where you stand, then they know what they need to do. And then they know, do they align with your values or do they not align with your values? And then they can make intelligent decisions going forward. And so it is a very win-win scenario for all members of the team.
Yeah, I think that that's a really great point. And one of the things that I did want to bring up, because while you were talking, I was trying to think too, like in, where we're at now. And because so much of what you do, and it's not just, one thing, but you work with a lot of teams. And I happen to know that because you and I have spoken quite a few times. But and that requires like going into sometimes probably more often than not, right, a culture that's not exactly super supportive of this mindset, because it's really what it is, a mindset change, because basically what they're trying to figure out is how to get people to start, doing the things that you stop doing, the things that you were talking about earlier on, and not to take things so personally, and to understand how to deal with this in these ways. And I'm sure that a lot of the companies you deal with, it's not always like people don't really realize it until they realize it, and I think too, what we've now gone through as not just as the New York, New Jersey area, but as an entire like global community, from going and still living through a pandemic here, and working from home and virtual, and people are now, especially in our area, are starting to come back. Their offices are reopening. By the fall, where we have a lot more offices reopening. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, what have you seen as far as the changes in what you're talking about from, during the pandemic here through now starting to come out of it? Like, what's the climate like? And is there a need for what you're doing more than ever? Because I would suspect that there is. That's my suspicion.
Well, not only do I think it, but my clients think there is a need. So what I would say is, before the pandemic, I would go into my corporate clients and say, we're going to lower your attrition rate and increase your creativity rate and expedite your productivity and use statistics and numbers. And I would mention the word compassion under my breath, because it was too woo-woo, and oh my God, she's going to make us hold hands and sing Kumbaya and have a meditation. And when clients would say, oh my God, you're so touchy-feely, I'd say, yeah, I am, because I am, which has made me laugh when you said touchy-feely before. I am touchy-feely. I'm also extremely business-oriented, and I don't see how the two conflict. I think it's a very beautiful union. But before the pandemic, I could never, ever mention the word anxiety, even though the work I do is very much about helping people manage their own anxieties.
Right.
in the workplace and at home, because I do, other private coaching. But now it is like gets me in the door. All I do is say, let's talk about compassion, anxiety, and fear in 2021. That's one of the workshops I'm leading a lot right now. Compassion,
Right.
fear, and anxiety in 2021. And people are like, oh my God, we need that. You mentioned we're going to be going back into the office. Well, I throw out there the idea that with this new variant, that we're going to go into the office and then leave the office. And then it's going to be, this push-pull, like what all the kids were doing in school for the past year.
Right.
All the parents were home. Oh, not all, but the majority of corporations had their people home. But the kids were like, you can go to school, no, you can't go to school. You can go on Wednesday, but you can't go on Thursday. But you can go next week, but you have to stay home. And I venture a guess that's going to happen again because of this variant. I hope not. And the reason I say this is because there is so much anxiety and fear of what's going to happen and what's going to happen next and how am I going to deal with it? And if I have to go into work, but my kid has to be at home, there's so much cacophony in people's heads, specifically people with kids, but not only, people whose kids are furry, right? You've got a dog, a cat, or whatever. You stayed home all year. You walked your dog every day. How are you going to do that now if you might have to go back to work? So there's an enormous amount of fear and anxiety just about location. And then there's an enormous amount of fear and anxiety about, will I still have my job? What are sales actually like? What will it be like to be back in the office? There's so much, you talked about not taking it personally. Everybody knows how when you get an email, you can totally take that personally. You can totally not take that personally. But you have to have the energy and the wherewithal to choose to not take it personally, right? You need the support to choose to not do that when you're weary and exhausted and have this anxiety and fear that no one's naming the elephant in the room, and yet you're expected to continue to deliver at 110%. In many cases with my clients, it's I now have to do 3 people's jobs because they laid off, but I need to keep my job, but they're not giving me any more, not an increase, not a promotion. I'm just lucky I get to keep my job. So there are a lot of layers that people are dealing with. And then you layer on top of that the actual work, right? Before we even get to the work.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. And I love that you brought up all these points because it is very, very true about, it's not even about yourself, but it's about the other people that have been in your orbit and like you said, our furry friends too. And really that all comes into an account. And I think that's why I think in particular what you're doing is very important for people, not just individuals, but also, full companies to be able to get to bring people back into the office, get them back into the rhythm, get them back into the groove. But I don't think it can just go back to business as usual. I think that as a global culture and society, we have all gone through and are still experiencing an extremely traumatic event in all of our lives that's affected us in one way or the other, some more than others, but either way, no one has been left unaffected. And then when we bring that more into the professional setting, this is definitely upended that for many companies, businesses, freelancers, small business owners. I mean, everybody all around. And I think that what you're doing is actually very important because I think that you have to look at things. You have to be compassionate about everybody's situations. It can't just be an all or nothing. And, but obviously, the business has to run too, because this is how, business needs to be here. We need to still create services and products. We need to keep people employed. And to keep people employed, the business has to make money. Right. So we have to get back to doing business, but we just can't do it in the same, we just got to go back to doing it and just kind of erase what just happened. And by the way, it's not over. So, let's not pretend that we're still that's just over because it's still going on. In some regions are better off than others, but that's not a clean sweep of everything. But with the point I'm trying to make is I just feel like that this mindset of compassionate management, compassionate leadership is something that I think all companies across the board have to adopt, like 100%. It's not something.
Well, they don't. They
I
don't.
know,
That's the
but they
thing.
should, because
They can
you
continue
can't
to
just force.
make a lot of money using fear-based management. They can. They won't. They won't make.
But it seems it's going to be burnt out. Like I can't
Well, but
see it being
that's what
sustainable.
happens. But that's part of their business model.
Yeah.
Let me churn and burn. Let me use one and done, and then keep going and keep filling that position and burn out the next person and burn out the next person. And yet they can make a lot of money that way. The question that I propose to people is, who do you want to be in this life? And so even those people, those clients I work with who you mentioned, there has to be some companies where they're not embracing this. That doesn't mean that there isn't a department that can embrace it. So many of my clients, now I work with small businesses and I work with huge corporations. So this wouldn't necessarily apply to small business as much. Well, that is not true, actually. I'll give an example of one of my small business clients. This is a past client where the owner was fear-based and insecure and shaming and not so great in my mind. And the people on her team didn't like it. And they saw it. And they said to me, there's so much fear here. And I said, yes. Now, what was interesting is the person who brought me in got approval to bring me in from this fear-based person. Which meant there was something going on with the fear-based person, but I didn't even talk to that person. I didn't get involved. I worked with the people, not the owner, on how to manage themselves and how to show up as fully themselves in that environment without burning out. There's a way. What I'm trying to say is all of us, or 99% of us, have had to work jobs that we didn't want to stay at. And that has happened to me numerous times in my career. I mean, I've worked for 30 something years. Absolutely, it's happened. How did I get through it is what I teach. How to get through it, because very few of us have an inheritance. Very few of us won the lottery or lotto. And a lot of us have to earn bread and butter to take care of our families and take care of ourselves. And so there is a way to work in what I would call a toxic or volatile environment and not completely lose yourself and not come home and cry every day. It's not the best scenario, but you can make it what I call manageable. You can make it okay while you're looking for a new job, or even if you can't look for a new job, because there are a lot of people who there's so much going on. Let's say you have a child who has an illness, right? And it's an ongoing illness. You can't take the time to look for a job while you're finding the right medical, psychological, whatever professional, while you're doing your job, while you're paying the rent or the mortgage. That's a lot. So how to make the job manageable enough so that you're bringing in the money so you can put your energy into taking care of your child, right? So that's a lot of the work I do. Fortunately or unfortunately, is helping people work through toxic environments to make it okay. And then, of course, I work with small businesses where the owner says, look, I've got 10, 20 people in my company. I want it to thrive. What do I do? And then we talk through process and protocol and maybe some scripting for how to deal with different situations. So that is, that's super delicious when I'm able to bring it to the whole company. But both are of equal value, I think.
Yes, well said. And I agree with you 100%. I wanted to just touch on, I wanted to back up a little bit because you said something a little bit ago, and I want to talk about something that I know you do, because I know this is something you actually run a workshop on, which is how to not take things so personally. And you mentioned something before, and I think this would be really helpful for the people listening and watching this to hear a little bit of it and give them a sneak peek as to how you help people to do this. Because you said it before about an email, right? and I am guilty as charged for doing this, and texts and even posts and all that. And it's so easy to just read an email and insert voice here,
Right.
a made up tone that
That's
is
right.
of our own construct, and then immediately make it so personal and get bent out of shape or upset or cause anxiety. So I'd love for you to talk.
Distraction.
Yeah, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you help people to deal with that, overcome it, channel it.
So there are, I would love to talk about this. There are a lot of things I teach. Not taking it personally is near and dear to my heart because, of course, we teach that which we need to learn. That goes for everything I teach.
Right.
And even though I'm really good at it all now, I will never be 100% perfect on it. I don't believe that's human, and I prefer to be human, not a robot. So there are two different scenarios when it comes to taking something personally. One is when it may or may not be a personal attack, and the other one is when it most definitely is. So if I were to say to you, Chris, nice shirt, how does that sound?
Oh, it sounds great. Thank you. Thanks
how about this one? Nice shirt.
All right. Yeah, you can go either way on that. My shirt was sarcastic.
How about this one?
Sure.
Right.
Could be like, nice shirt.
Right, exactly. Huh. Nice shirt, Chris. Right? And then for those of you who can't see the video, I just made a look like, what you wearing, man? So that is shaming. I think shaming is one of the most horrific devices somebody can use when interacting with anybody on the planet ever. I think shaming is counterproductive in every possible way. So if you ever want to have a conversation with me about shaming, I could talk about that for the next 6 hours. Instead, I'm going to talk about not taking it personally because you asked me to, and how we can choose to respond or choose not to respond. And I think the key word there is choose. It is a choice. I took things personally for most of my life. I've always had anxiety my whole life, born with anxiety, ton of anxiety. I was shamed for it. Back in 1873, when I was born, there was no education about anxiety. It was just sort of, hysterical woman thing, even though I was a child. It was a very shameful thing to have. Nowadays, as I said before about COVID, it's like everybody has it. You can walk in and say, want to talk about anxiety? And everyone will say, yes, please. Can we just help me get rid of it? But so living with that shame for a long time, it then manifested in all different kinds of ways, including assuming the worst of people, right? Because if I felt embarrassed about who I was, I would always assume that everybody would not like me, right? And so it's very easy. It was very easy for me to assume that anything somebody said in writing, particularly, I could put that tone on it of snarkiness or nastiness. And so anyway, after I've been a practitioner of mindfulness meditation and mindfulness life for 16 years. And I remember when it was early on in my practice, I was probably 5 years into it. And I started to really feel like make friends with myself, which is the beauty of meditation. And mindfulness is you actually can watch the thoughts in such a way that you're no longer distracted by the thoughts, and you can actually see who you are and meet who you are, which is what makes most people afraid of meditation. But in fact, you're really a beautiful person, every single one of you. So anyway, I digress. So I remember this instance when I was working, I was consulting at this seriously toxic environment. I mean, there are two places I've worked where the toxicity was unbearable for me. And I have a high level of ability to deal with toxicity because of all the work I've done. And this colleague, now again, I was a consultant, so I wasn't, but this colleague sent me an email that was so nasty. I don't even remember what it was. I probably saved it somewhere because I was aghast. I was like, wow, this culture enables this sort of thing. And I looked at the email and I burst out laughing. I was alone in my office, and I burst out laughing, and I was like, I am going to choose to respond to that as if it weren't snarky and condescending at all. And I wrote back simply, thank you, period. And when I saw her in the hallway, she was like, yeah, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm great. And I just kept walking. And it was like a mind blow for her, but mostly for me, that I don't need to bite that hook. I don't need to respond in the way that she wants me to. And therefore, I started codifying what I call the formula for how to not take things personally. And it has changed my life. And so I teach this all the time. And it really is life-changing.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely fallen victim to this many times of exactly what it is, like, taking the hook there and getting roped into oh, you know what, I'm gonna write this big response, and
Right.
and then you find out, and I gotta tell you how many times I've done that and then hit delete and never even sent it because I'm like, I just gotta get it out, and then I'm like, wait a second, let me reread this. Let's take it down a notch. Could it be that this is all in my head and I've completely made this whole thing up? And maybe they are that way, but you know what? I'm not going to really find out until I actually physically talk to them and hear how they feel or understand it. But why jump to the conclusion right away that there's an issue with me or an issue with something? Right. Why don't I just respond back like a human being, very rationally, and then take it to whatever the next logical step has to be, rather than firing off some kind of emotionally driven verbiage,
That's the key to the formula that I've created, is how to move from anger or whatever negative energy into neutral energy. And that's what compassion does. Compassion can move you from, so in my example, she really was trying to get me to lose my cool. But there are 1,000 at least other examples in my life, not just in my career, where somebody said something and I was like, F them. I just immediately assumed and got defensive and all that. When the reality could well have been, they were, I'm going to say it, constipated, frustrated, had a fight with their girlfriend. Who knows what goes on in people's lives, right?
Right.
Who knows? And that's part of the formula, is to decide to not take it personally, even if it was intended to be or it wasn't. It's irrelevant what that person's intention was. What is relevant is, who do I want to be in this world? How do I want to show up in this world? Do I want to show up an emotional, hysterical, la, 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 or do I want to show up as a calm, confident, what I call quietly confident, not cocky, but quietly confident, oh, okay. So the example I gave about the thank you, that was very purposeful. That was meant to say to her, talk to the hand. Mama doesn't play that game. Whereas with other people, I had a client who, we had a session, and he was very upset. And he said, so-and-so said to me, why are you invited? I didn't realize you were invited to this meeting. And we talked about it. And it turned out that the person who said that was in great competition with my client. And the fact is, my client had a lot more experience to bring to the meeting. And of course was going to be invited because they had years of experience to bring to this project, to this meeting.
Right.
So instead of my client saying, well, you're so, no point, not going to move anything forward that way. And instead, my client responded and said, yeah, I am. Let's sit down, and just sort of dissipated the anger, but only because my client was able to stop, pause, and think, what's going on with him? What's going on with him? He's being so nasty. Why is he always so nasty to me? What could be going on here? Oh, I know. His boss and my boss are talking about promotion, blah, 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 and find compassion for him, doesn't have to like him. You don't have to like the person you have compassion for. But to have an understanding that that person has their own journey and that their behavior directed at you, or maybe you're just in the line of fire, may have nothing to do with you.
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of those things where, you know, you don't know what's going on in somebody's life at that moment in time. And like, yes, you could be just in the line of fire at that given moment because something literally just happened. And then with you, you know, you just happened to be there and you caught shrapnel, you know? And so,
right.
And that happens but there's also just other things like you just don't know what's going, that person decided to send this message at the exact same time that they just were involved in something, and you just don't know. So it's like you have to give people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes you really got to cut them a little bit of slack because you just don't know. And
so I don't even know if you know this, but one of the things I teach is benefit of the doubt, and I call it BOD, baby.
I didn't know that, actually.
BOD, baby, benefit of the doubt, baby.
Yeah. But
instead
it's so
of AOG, assumption of guilt. And I'll tell you a really funny story. So I've raised my child on all these things that I teach. And when they were about 3, I raised them on meditation and yoga and compassionate parenting and conscious parenting. And so when they were about 3 and they were in the back of the car, in the car seat, and I was driving, and we were living in Manhattan at the time. I don't know why I was in my car, but we were. And this taxi stopped short in front of us. And I beeped, which was unusual for me, but I did. And I was pissed. Oh, we were in a hurry to get to a family gathering. And I was like, what are you doing? You know, to the taxi driver. And then the taxi driver got out, walked around and opened the back door and helped out this extremely elderly person with a walker. And I went, and my child goes, BOD, mommy. And I was like, thank God somebody's listening.
I was back full circle.
So I guess I bring up this example because for those of you listeners who are parents or have nieces or nephews, or I've got a new word called niblets that a friend of mine created. If your niece or nephew is neither niece or nephew, if they're gender fluid or something like that, because we have a very gendered binary language. So if you have a young one in your life and they're watching everything you do, right? They're watching the road rage. They're watching the meditation. They're watching how you are on the phone with your clients or your colleagues. They hear it all. And how many times have you had a phone call and then you walked out to make dinner and your kid or the young one in your life says, are you okay? And you're like, I'm fine. And then you realize, you know what? We're all made of energy.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to carry this nasty energy from that conversation or the berating I got from my boss or whatever, I carry that into my whole life, which means I'm carrying it in my body. So the only one I'm poisoning is me. I'm going to choose to shift that energy towards compassion for myself, that I have to deal with this. Compassion for my boss, who's in such a situation that she had to yell at me. I don't like it. I don't condone it. I don't accept it. And not but, and let me think about, why is she doing that? What pressure is she under? What's going on there? Not to excuse it, simply to make it manageable for me. Yeah. And therefore, this is what I call my HBOS. For those of you who are listening, this is a little beanbag that I actually had my cousin make for me many years ago in the other of the 2 most toxic places I've ever worked. This was a full-time job many years ago, and it was truly toxic. The shaming was endless, but I had to stay because the economy had crashed and I had a new baby and I just didn't have an option. And again, I'm going to curse. And so I got permission to hire somebody to help me with the workload. It was an enormous amount of workload. So I brought in somebody whom I loved from a previous job. And I said, okay, we're going to toss around what I call, let me move the string so you can see.
Yep.
Hot bag of shit. Because when people use fear-based management, they throw that hot bag of shit right back down and down and down, and it trickles down.
Yep.
And I said to this person, I will not be throwing that hot bag of shit down. And we're going to play toss with this so that I can turn this hot bag of poop into compassion. And he was like, all right. And then when people would come in and say, what's that? I'd say, oh, it's how to blow off steam. And it worked, because the physical activity of tossing it, of exchanging energy with somebody who got it, somebody with whom I could trust my vulnerability, just that alone, I didn't even have to talk about what happened. I could just say, okay, I need to do this. I need to do this. And that action and that connection, because that's what it's about, is connecting for real with somebody else who gets it, who can look across the dining room table and go, just that little eyebrow raise when somebody says something cucamonga, right?
Right.
Or in the office when somebody goes, I gotcha. Just that little nod at that meeting table. Mm-hmm. It takes all that negative energy, shifts it into neutral, and maybe even positive. Mm. But it takes work, and that's the work that I teach.
Yeah, and I think, once again, just to bring it back, I find it to be very valuable. And I think that if you're in any kind of, definitely in a team setting where you're working with others and you have a mishmash of personality types, but then, obviously company culture plays a huge part in this. And it does start with leadership, because what kind of ship are you trying to run here? And mm-hmm. And you have to set the right tone. And if the tone is toxic, then the environment's going to be toxic. And then this is the problems you're going to have. And I think that this is why, coming out of everything that we're coming out of, or at least, getting back to some sense of like normality pre-pandemic, I think that I just feel like that this is just going to be very important work that mm-hmm. companies are really going to have to keep their eye on, and bring someone in like yourself to really work with their people, talk to their people, but not just, but it also, once again, it starts with leadership. It starts with management. Like, it starts from the top, like top sets the precedent, and it goes down, and people follow the leader. And if I
will add something to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have quite a few clients right now, quite a few, where, well, let me back up just a second. So an old client of mine who's now a very good friend, mm-hmm. She used to think she did not like me at all. And then we suddenly clicked, and now we're like best buds, which is really delicious. She said to me, oh, the great resignation is coming. And I was like, the what? And she said,
I saw that.
Great resignation, because of the technology. People are no longer, and COVID, people are no longer willing to be forced to go back into the office. If I could save $500 to $600 a month on just commuting, right? And 3 hours a day, just commuting, and take $100,000 less a year so that I could be at home with my kids, because that $100,000 is all of that commuting time, all of that commuting money, all of the meals that I bought in the city, all of whatever, it adds up. So people are going to be willing to take less salary to be able to work from home. So all these companies that are like, you're going to have to come in, they're going to have, a rude awakening.
Yep. I agree.
But the point I wanted to make was that in many, many of my clients, I think about 4 right now, 3 or 4 right now, the people at the lower level have made it clear to the people at the higher level, you got to change the culture.
Well, I agree.
And the people at the higher level are going, oh, snap.
Well, yeah.
And they're bringing me in because they're like, oh my God, we have all this young talent. None of them want to stay because we're treating them with fear-based management. So
Yeah.
it is kind of, I've always said I love millennials because they align very much with my view of the world, or I align with their view of the world, whatever. But Gen Z, oh man, I love this generation. They are just taking it to the next level. And so between millennials and Gen Z, we're eradicating fear-based management. It's just happening.
It is. It's changing, and like you said, this Great Resignation, which I've seen that topic trend, but it is true because now everybody's had a taste of what it can be like and that it does work, and people are like, you know what? Exactly what you just said. If I can save money in commuting, if I can save money on childcare, if I can be home and be happier, if I can be home my dog and work with my dog, like,
right.
And I'm still getting everything done. I'm still being productive, if not even
I
being more productive.
With my child.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't have to go back to that job. I'll go get another job that actually caters to that, that says, yes, that's okay. So I do believe that while, the top dictates a lot of things that happen, also people underneath, when you band together and just say no,
right.
A little bit like a union, but no, we're not standing for this anymore. Good luck finding new talent because we're not subscribing to that unless you change your culture, your actions, and and that's what's going to happen. I mean, it is happening. It
is happening. You're
right. It's already happening.
You're right. It's not going to. It is.
It's not coming. It's here. Like, and I know many people who are very much on the fence about going back to where they are, or already starting to get the grumblings of, well, they're telling me this, but I don't know if that happens. I don't know if I'm going back. And that's a conversation I've had more often than not.
Exactly.
So,
and I've had a lot of conversations with top leaders who say, but we bought Headspace. And I say, that's fantastic that you bought Headspace for everybody. Have you done any training? No, we just bought Headspace. And I say, well, that feels insulting. Because you're saying, oh, guys, I want you all to work 130%, right? Because you got to cover for everybody and you need to do it from home. Oh my God. I heard somebody the other day, a client said to me, a potential client, they're not a client yet, said to me, I have to have my camera on all day and they have to see me in front of it all day. And I said, it's got to be illegal. And he said, it doesn't matter. That's what they're requiring. I was like, oh my God, I can't even. So, these leaders are saying to me, well, I brought in Headspace, so it's mindfulness. And I say, that's fantastic. I think the reason you're probably talking with me is because there's an awareness that you can't just say, here's a book, fix yourself. Right. That it's more about shifting the culture to acknowledge the anxiety and maybe do some mindfulness trainings and maybe some meditation trainings. And, if you want to use Headspace, that's great. I'll incorporate that. So then they know how to use it, because otherwise it feels like what companies used to do. And I don't know if they do that anymore. None of my clients do this now, where it was, actually, that's not true. I have one client who does this, where you have to take a certain amount of trainings. So they have this collection of trainings, online trainings, and you have to take a certain amount in order to, get a good review. That's just the basic, you have to do that requirement. Like a company would say you have to do timesheets, which makes total sense. Another company would say you have to do these trainings. And so I have friends who would sit on the phone with me and I'd be like, what is that noise in the background? Oh, I have the sexual harassment video going. It just has to go.
Right. It just has to play out.
And it's talking the talk, but not walking the walk.
Right.
And the millennial generation and the Gen Z generation don't have patience for that. And I think that's fantastic.
Well said. Absolutely well said. So, wow, I can't even believe. Look at this. It's almost been an hour since we've been going. This is great. This has been an amazing discussion, and it's probably one I could continue to keep having with you for probably another hour.
Wait, can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Okay, so I've had my business for 15 years. I love my business. I love what I do. But pretty much every 2 years, I work with a coach to kind of take it to the next level. And I want everybody to know that I hired Chris as my coach. Now, he signed me up to be on the podcast before that. But I was like,
true.
you know what? This guy is brilliant. He is dynamic. I love his energy. I love his brain. And so I'm working with Chris right now, and I think he's brilliant. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that and saying
and
that.
Thank you for all of your guidance and support. And you don't yes me. I can't stand yes people. You don't yes me. You work with me with compassion and accountability. And it really is so wonderful to partner with you.
Well, I feel the same way. Likewise, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much for saying that. It was very nice of you to say that. So, yeah, it's been great working with you, and I love the work we're doing together. So, definitely, we're going to keep it up. You're doing great.
Yeah,
you're doing great. So, as we sign off here, I do want to make sure that you get a chance. I've been flashing your website up. I've been flashing your IG up. I flashed the book, your TED Talk, but just so people, and this has been the visual side, but so people who are listening to this, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
Rena at RenaDeLevie.com.
Yes, and all these links are in the show notes, by the way. So the link to Rena's book, Compassionate Management: How Ambitious Creatives Become Kick-Ass Leaders. Yes, there it is. That is in the show notes, as well as the link to Rena's TED Talk, Compassionate Management, Using Compassion as a Business Tool. All links are there, as well as the link to her website.
Just Google Rena DeLevie. I have such a weird name. I'll pop up all over the place.
It is true. You do. You Google very well. Having a unique name means you get to basically own the first page of Google.
Well, also having 15 years of content adds up.
Yeah,
and I will say for anybody who has a small business, just keep doing the next right thing. Don't get wigged out about where am I going next and what planet am I taking over. Do the next right thing that brings you joy, and it will build and build and build and build.
Love that.
So Chris, can you say that to me when I start freaking out?
I will.
Thank you.
I will definitely say it to you when you start freaking out.
Because it happens. Doesn't matter how many years you're in business.
It always happens. Absolutely.
Which is why you need to have good people around you.
Yes, 100%. Anybody watching or listening, believe me, you are not alone. I'm sure you felt like this, and it's perfectly okay. It is okay. Yes. Just know that we all have gone through it. We all feel the same way, and we continue to go through it. It doesn't ever stop. You just get better at dealing with it. And definitely surrounding yourself with the right people is the key.
Yes.
Always, always. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on. This truly was wonderful. I was so glad that we had the chance to do this, get you on the show, talk all about the great work that you're doing, because I really do believe in it. I think it's wonderful stuff. And I think that for anybody who's watching and listening to this right now needs to get a hold of Rena, because the work that she does is great. I love it. And I think that it is something that is going to be more needed. Actually, it's not going to be. It is more needed than ever as we all get back to doing our things and as things change. So I definitely 100% agree that leading with compassion over toxicity is a way better to do business.
And I'll give you all the financials when you call me for why it's better for your company.
Yeah, well, there's that too.
Yeah. I'll leave you with one financial. It costs 50 to 75% of a person's salary to replace that person.
Yeah.
I did not make up that number.
No.
And all that history, the institutional knowledge, the relationships, the dynamic, all of that gets gone. Start from scratch. Much better to keep the good people and only the good people.
Only the good people. Well, I want to thank everybody right now who has been watching us live today. I want to thank everybody who will be watching a replay of this, as well as listening to the audio version. I want to thank you guys all so much. And please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to whoever you're watching or listening to this video, because as I said at the top, it not only helps me grow the show, but it also, most importantly, helps the guests that I have on to get the word out about what they're doing and how they're helping others. If you want to support me and the show, please head over to buymeacoffee.com/cvaglio. You can also hit the links in the notes and in the post section of this video and audio as well. And just as one more quick thing is that I did launch a new online group coaching community called the Let's Rock Group. And if you're interested in learning more about it, just head over to my website, rocketgrowthagency.com/Let's Rock Group. If you go to the website, you'll see the button on there as well. Just click that and you'll get all kinds of information on the group and see whether or not if it's a fit for you. And with that, we will see you guys next Tuesday. That's right. Next Tuesday, we'll be back with another live episode of Rocket Live. We'll see you then. Thanks, Rena. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And always remember, be authentic, be yourself, and always remember to rock it.
Amen.